Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I see folks joining from all over. I recognize some customers, longtime customers, and some new names here.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you. Uh, Thank you guys for joining. I'm joined by my colleagues Ron and Tuan.
Hey, Sean. Yeah, it's cool that we do this again. Been a while, and
Yeah.
we are getting back into doing our quarterly updates and getting that pace going. So yeah, good to see this.
So we're going to cover in this webinar the most recent release, the 2024.12, which is kind of like the New Year's release. So that's a good chance to look back at the changes and what we've done, and also to look ahead. Just a bit of housekeeping. There is a chat questions feature in your Zoom toolbar. At any point, you can type your questions in there. We'll try to take them as we go, and then we also reserve some time at the end. So we do this webinar for you guys, so make sure that you ask questions. That's the benefit of joining live rather than watching the recording. I don't have any polls today, so you're off the hook. You don't have to answer any questions. So we will share the slide deck and the recording, so you could just relax. You don't have to take screenshots or take notes. You can watch it again later. With that, let's take
Yeah,
a
I
look at
think
the
we've
agenda.
we have
Go
quite a
ahead.
big group now, Sean. I see, so that's good. So
Oh,
yeah,
good.
great.
Okay.
Have a good one, Sean. I will mute myself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, Tuan and Ron are going to help me with questions throughout too. So guys, feel free to interrupt me. It's good to take them as we go. But I leave it up to you if you want to also tuck them in at the end. The main agenda today is going to deal mostly with a lot of updates to ServoyCloud over the past uh, the last release, and we didn't do an update webinar before that. So I'll cover some things that are new, not just in the last release, but even before that. And that includes the identity access management features of ServoyCloud, allowing you to configure your application security in the cloud in a no-code, easy configuration environment, and have that be consumed by your applications wherever they're running. So we'll take a look at that and the enhancements there. We've added a lot of application monitoring. That's one of the big advantages of ServoyCloud. We'll see what that looks like, because it's getting better all the time. There is project management feature in there. So if you use something like Jira, basically we were using Jira internally, and we essentially copy it. So you get that with ServoyCloud. You can manage all your projects and link those to your source code as well. It's getting to sort of feature parity with a slimmed down, easier to manage kind of version of Jira. I'm most excited to talk about satellites. It's a new deployment method available to you from ServoyCloud. So we'll take a look what that looks like. And of course, there are the enhancements and changes to ServoyDeveloper and Core. And so I'll go over those and jump into ServoyDeveloper. I like to do these webinars with lots of demos and not so many slides, and just give you a chance to see it and ask questions as we go. It's sort of complicated. I got to jump around a lot to different browser tabs, and so I'll do my best to not get lost or get stuck. But we'll go slow and be patient with me and ask questions. So let's do it. The first demo I want to show is in ServoyCloud, having to do with the identity access management. So just a refresher, you can do your user management in ServoyCloud and allow your applications to consume that wherever they run. And what we added over the past year is a universal login screen, which allows you to have sort of a stateless login. So it used to be that when you're sitting on a login screen in Servoy, it's sort of consuming a license, it's consuming resources, it has a stateful session. So you could have 100 users sitting at a login screen, and they're actually occupying resources on the application server. And that was all form-based and solution-based. What we've added is a stateless login screen and allow you to use different authentication sources with that, including the ServoyCloud Identity Access Management Platform. But recently we've added a lot of design features, so you can design that in ServoyCloud and consume that in your applications. And now we've added third-party authenticators, so you can authenticate your users through Google or Microsoft. And we have plans to support other authentication systems like Azure AD, GitHub, whatever OAuth connections you might want to use. One of the big improvements we've done is also add multi-tenant support. So now applications that are, they don't have to run in ServoyCloud. None of these features require that you host with Servoy, but you can consume your multi-tenant security schema into your applications. So it allows you to easily manage and view tenants from ServoyCloud. And then finally, we added a forgot password flow to that stateless login screen. So let me jump over to ServoyCloud and show you what this looks like. I have all my Zoom stuff blocking me here. So let's go into the Cloud Control Center. I have a list of applications here in my sample namespace. I come into this one, Cloud Sample Solution, and I go to the Configure option. And you can see there's the Edit Custom Login. So when I bring this up, I get the preview of my login screen that will get served to all my applications. And then you can see here that there are options for the logo, the image, all of the colors. So we really added a lot of options to get that the way you prefer. I'll make one change and just show you how it can broadcast into. I'll make the button purple. So you can see it in the preview, but we'll also see it in the login. All of these are configurable. We added layout options here, so I could switch that between right and left or center. Finally, down here at the bottom, you can see that there's the options to sign in with Google or Microsoft. So if you tick those and enable those, it will allow you to put these buttons on your login. It'll just automatically put them on your login. And so when your users click that, they can authenticate through a third-party provider, and that gets passed back into your solution when they log in. We also added tenant support. So now if you are using the multi-tenant features in the Servoy Cloud Control Center, there's two things that happen here. One, it will prompt the user if they belong to more than one tenant, then it will prompt them to choose a tenant. And that's all something you can configure here in the back end. And then once they log in into the on open, we can pass in the tenant that was selected and apply any tenant filters automatically. So you really can kind of control this without code from a central place. Even if you deploy multiple servers on premise, you can manage your all of your application security here and push it through when they log in. Finally, there's also a remember me option here, which does this.
Hey Sean. So
yeah,
a couple of questions came up from Willie. Is it planned to use passkey authentication? That's from Google, I think. Passkey authentication.
Yeah. Right now we don't have that available. The vision here is that we make one place where you can manage all of your application security, and that includes user management, permissions, multi-tenant support, third-party authenticators, and then more and more we'll be able to add additional features like cybersecurity features. So we're very open to expanding the roadmap for this, because once people are using it more and more, then it really becomes easier for us to enrich what's going on. And if you are unfamiliar with this direction that we're taking, essentially we're going with a kind of best practices for how people are authenticating in business applications today. So a lot of people pay a lot of money for platforms like Okta or Auth0. To be perfectly honest, we're basically just copying the features of those into the platform and merging it with very Servoy specific things like multi-tenant applications, right? So that's kind of the vision for that. So the short answer is no, Willie, we don't support Google Passkey that I know of, unless it just works when you use it might just work because because
we have to
that's
look
all
at that a little
managed by
closer.
Google. Yeah, we'll have to look into it. But it's certainly things like that we can add to our roadmap if there's demand for it. And that's kind
One
of
other
the
big
whole
question
idea
that's coming up is this available only if your application is on ServoyCloud, or can we do this on premise and still hook into it somehow?
Right. So that's going to be a question I think that applies to a lot of the things I'm going to show with respect to ServoyCloud. And the answer is it's available no matter where you host your application. So if you self-host or you use a different public cloud or you have multiple on-premise deployments, you can centralize the management of your application security and consume that from one place. So for example, if you have a bunch of on-premise deployments for different tenants, and for one tenant you want to go in and lock a user, you can just come in here and find that user and lock them, and then they won't be able to log in, even though that's running on-premise somewhere. So it's a sort of cloud central managed security, and that's very much just kind of the way the industry goes. If you look at the big identity access management platforms, that's kind of how it works. You can see login histories, and you can start to do cybersecurity features like password rules and dark web monitoring and all of those things. So all of those things become possible when you move the application security out of code and into a centrally managed place. One other thing I forgot to mention, that we did add a forgot password flow. So there, if in the previews you see, there's also the forgot password preview, and you can set the options for that as well. If you enable forgot password, then it manages the flow for you. So what I'm going to do is just save this. I have this application already running. Well, it logged me out. I'm going to log back in. And now you can see that the purple button is pushed. So whatever changes you're making on the ServoyCloud side will get pushed the next time they log in. So no need to redeploy or run some import hook or or anything like that. It's just consuming it live. The other thing that I pointed out here was the multi-tenant support. So if I just come into this application and look at the application security, you can see that I have multiple tenants here. CRM, Servoy, tenant 1, tenant 2. These are just example tenants. I can create and manage tenants here. Tenants are at the application level, but then when I come into the user management level and I look at this this user here, for example, I have roles and permissions. I think I've demoed these in past webinars, login history, etc. But you can see here that this user is associated with 2 tenants, so I can associate them. So tenants are managed at the application level, and then users are above the application level, but they can belong to multiple tenants that way. So if I switch back to the login screen here, and I actually continue, now you get the tenant selection. I can choose the tenant that I want and then access my application. So that's the multi-tenant feature. The other thing it does, it's actually passing the tenant ID that was selected into the on open, and we can automatically apply the filter. So if you have if you have a multi-tenant database, you can use that to apply for your filters. We filter data broadcasting on tenants. So there's a lot that can go on under the hood, but that's all completely flexible. I'm going to click around here and just do something for the next demo. So the next thing I'm going to show is how we can actually see what this user's doing. So I click a few things. And we'll come back to that for the next demo. So did I remember everything here? Third-party account, multi-tenant, no-code designer. I think so. So that's demo 1. We'll go to demo 2. Again, this is back in ServoyCloud. We've done a lot around application monitoring. So one thing that for longtime Servoy customers, you're familiar with the Servoy admin page, and it does have some monitoring and some real-time visibility into a single application server. In ServoyCloud, we run Kubernetes with scaling. So we have multiple nodes at any given time. They can spin up, they can spin down. It's fairly elastic. So what that means is that there is no single Servoy admin page. So the admin page starts to feel kind of legacy or classic when you get into a real cloud environment. And this would be true if you run your own data center with clustering too. You don't have to run in ServoyCloud to run multi-node. You could do it yourself. But in either case, you start to lose the capability of the admin page. Moreover, the admin page is fairly limited. It's always kind of just showing real time, but it doesn't save much of what it's monitoring persistently and lets you analyze it or aggregate it. So we're doing a lot in this space. So what I'm going to show you is how we can see, for example, the real-time users that are logged in and interact with them. So that's similar to what's in the classic admin page. But then also something people have been asking for a long time, which we can do in ServoyCloud, is if there's an error in the log, you can actually go and say, oh, for what user was that? If your user's doing something and they report a performance issue, you can actually go in and look at their performance statistics for that individual client session that's happening that day. So that's what I'm going to show next here. We'll jump over back to our applications running here. So again, my sample solution is deployed to multiple. This application is deployed to multiple environments. I'm going to drill into one of these, and if we look at the user data, what we have had. This is still loading. The chart will pop up in a moment, I think. We have shown user sessions over time. So this has been in ServoyCloud for a long time. You can look at it, over the past week, et cetera, and see that. So that's sort of you don't get that with the admin page. This is looking at this application running in this environment. Remember, the environment can be a multi-node environment, and it's aggregating all of the sort of average usage over time. But what that doesn't give you is real time what's going on in a client session. So we added that in this last release. So you can see down here the active user sessions. And again, this is for potentially multiple application servers in a cluster. And you start to get back some of the functionality that's in the admin page. So if I click into this user, this is the user that's logged in that other tab that I just showed you where I was clicking around. So this looks very much like the admin page. And what we do show is, the user agent and that sort of thing. If they had database locks or transactions, they also show up there. But if we look at query performance, and it hasn't synced yet, or log activity, that will show up there along with application performance. What I'm going to do is come back because it had logged out. Well, I had this prepared, so it was in there. It had logged out. So now, again, this is not the real time. This is the real time view of this user session, and I'll come back and show that in a minute. In the meantime, what I can show is some of the things that you can do with this user. Again, this is parity now with the classic admin page. So I can message that user and say, I'm going to kick you out. Very friendly. And you can see that that's pushed to the client session over here. And then, of course, you could shut that user down right here. I'm going to leave that session open, though. I'll come back and shut it down because hopefully we can sync this up after a minute or two. It just takes a minute to sync. In the meantime, let's see what else I have. I will show, it sort of leads into the next demo. So on the monitoring side, we're capturing query statistics. We've shown some of this in past webinars, and performance statistics and log statistics. But what we're starting to do is link those. So I'll sort of finish the last demo and show that it's linked to the user session now, but they're also linked to each other. This is another thing that people have asked us is like, if I see that I have a poorly performing query, can I know not only what client session it's happening on, but where does it come from in my code? Because it just sort of, in the admin page, it just sort of shows the aggregate statistics since you last refreshed, and then you don't know really what to do with that. And it's the same with the log entries. So for the next demo, I'm going to show that. So I'll come, for that, I'm going to go over to a different namespace here. This is actually for ServoyCloud, because there's a lot of info here. And I'll come into one of these. So this is actually the environment that I'm using right now. So we run ServoyCloud on ServoyCloud, if that makes sense. So you can see that it's telling me about application performance, query performance, and log activity. So we'll start with log activity. It might take a minute to open. There we go. So again, the chart has been in there for a long time. We do keep logs going back, I think, 30 days. So you can filter and look at log activity based on, errors or warnings or what have you. I could come in here and filter on error. And now I see some of the errors. If I look at an individual log entry, show more link didn't work. Let me just refresh. While I wait for that page to load, any questions, Juan or Ron coming in?
Not as of late.
Okay.
I answered a few of them though.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It took a minute to load that. So I looking at that log entry, I can now show the stack trace, and it shows where that's coming from. Right now, it's saying user unknown. Typically, it will show this. I think if I do my other demo, it comes up. So I'm not sure why that's not showing. But we can see the stack trace for the log. Yeah, and all this other stuff is now missing. That's weird. Come back. Let me go to the other performance data here. Sorry, that one was a bit weird. If I look at query performance, come down to one of these. Yeah, this one works. So again, if this is new, this has been in a feature for a long time that we're logging query performance for a given environment, aggregating multiple nodes together and showing you you could look at your query history for up to 30 days. And I think we showed like the AI part too, where it can recommend fixing a query. But for today, I'll show the stack trace feature. When a query is linked, not all queries are linked to your code, right? Like if a form shows and the found set loads, there's no code, so there's no stack trace to show. But when it's linkable, that button is enabled. And now you can actually say, okay, this is a slow query. I want to see where in my code this is. And you can drill down in the stack trace and you see this little database icon and you get the queries here. And it's showing the number of times it's called and the average call time. So you could really drill in, go find it in your code, and then fix it and see how it's generated. So on search command and that method, I would find this custom query in there, either raw SQL or the query builder, and I could go fix it. The same is true if I come back and look at application performance. Say this method is running slowly, and I look at the stack trace now for a method, and I can also, it's kind of the same, you're looking at the same thing maybe from two different directions. One, I'm starting with a poor query and saying, where in my code is this performing poorly? You might go the other way around. I would say more often it's like this. You have something performing poorly and you come in here and you can say, okay, why is this method so slow? Oh, there's the query, right? So now I can see that in this case, it's not a slow query, but it can be that it's usually a query that's taking a long time.
Sean, a question did come up. This new logging stuff, it's not just, is it only for ServoyCloud, not for on-premise? Or can we, I think we can remotely access now, right?
Yeah, thanks for that question, because that's kind of the question to ask for every demo, I think. So we can address that. So as we'll see when I get to the new satellites feature, that you do not have to host your application in ServoyCloud to get this aggregate view of your application performance. So again, you don't have to host in our cloud to get this. All righty. Let me jump over to this other demo and back out of it and see if we have that data synced in, because that would be nice. Yeah, so here we go. The previous demo, I know these kind of look the same, but the big difference here is that one, I'm looking at a whole environment, which could be multiple application servers, and looking at performance and kind of drilling down in there. Here, I could be looking at just an individual user session and say, okay, what's going on in this session? And I look at a query here, and yeah, this one's not linked to the stack trace. But now I can see this on an individual user level.
So we can now kind of know if one user is like taking up a lot of performance, they're running really heavy queries, we can kind of identify who's doing it as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you can, yeah, or if someone in particular is complaining about performance, you can look specifically at you know, the logs, the query performance, and the application performance segmented by that user session. So you can see here I've highlighted that the user session is here. And that would, of course, apply to tenants as well. We don't have that in here now, but that's where we're going. That you could also segment in a multi-tenant application by tenant. If you
there was another question
identity access management.
Yep. One more question came up from Hotfix Hero. He said he's asking, will this aggregate across multiple nodes in the Kubernetes cluster? I'm guessing that's K8s.
Okay, so yeah, so I can answer that. In order to get the if you're not running in our cloud, in order to get this functionality, you have to at least run the Docker image that's produced by the ServoyCloud pipeline. Now, we've covered the pipeline in other webinars, and but there's a whole automated build, test, and deploy side of ServoyCloud. So quickly, if I look at this, I have my pipelines here, and that gets into one of my upcoming demos. The artifact of so the current build number that's deployed is build 382. The build artifact for that is, of course, the WAR file, but also Docker image, right? And here's the parameters to pool that image into your Docker environment. So if you run Kubernetes and you want to take your image and deploy it across multiple containers, then you are essentially managing your own cluster. And if you have those images reporting back, those containers reporting back this data, then it will aggregate across multiple nodes. So the short answer is yes. So I think that covers demo number 2 and 3. So let's go to the next one. We'll take a quick detour into another feature of ServoyCloud, the Agile Project Manager. We've, over the last release and prior to that release, we put in a lot of work here to bring this up to par with like a simplified version of Jira. So I'll just give a quick demo of this. Folks that were already using ServoyCloud were using Fabricator, which was an open source project that we integrated with. That was announced that it was going to go end of life. So we just decided to put this in our cloud as a feature. We have the right people who can build a project management system pretty easy. And then we can link it to all of the other things going on in a Servoy application. So for us, that was kind of low-hanging fruit to add value to our cloud. So I will just, for this one, I just did a pre-recorded, or my colleague actually gave me a pre-recorded demo, and I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We support backlog management, sprint swim lanes. When you create tickets or cases, you can tag them, right, and tag and filter. You can assign tickets and generate email notifications. Most importantly, you can, or not most importantly, but one benefit you get from running in ServoyCloud is that you can, doing this in ServoyCloud, you can link your commits to your repository commits. Even if your repository is hosted outside of ServoyCloud, you can link those commits to your ticket system. So basically, if you know Jira, we're copying a lot of features that we like from Jira and trying to simplify it and make it out of the box here. So I will just click over to this one and let this run. So this is creating, I'm going to go through here in this demo and create essentially different issue types. We have bug, feature, and task. We simplified that down. Of course, Jira as a reference is infinitely configurable. It also makes it sort of complicated to administer. So here we just simplify things. You get 3 different issue types. You get different priorities. You can assign it, link it to an assignee and a reporter. So these are all the users in your ServoyCloud namespace from your organization, not your application end users, but your sort of developer, DevOps users. And then in a moment here, after we create a task, you can see that it's assigning custom tags. So later you could group or filter based on those tags. So I think here we make three cases, a bug, a feature, and a task. And then you can see that these are actual cases for ServoyCloud to optimize query performance for reports. One more, and then I think we'll see the backlog and sprint management. So here's the issue backlog, and you can create sprints. The duration is configurable, and you can start a sprint. You can load it up with the cases that you want. So here's a multi-select, and drag those and drop those into the sprint. By the way, this is all built in Servoy, so if you like the UX here, that's something that you can also build. Drag and drop came out a while back. Here we have the swim lanes, so you can easily change the state of your tickets by dragging them. The columns of the swim lane are also configurable. They're not as widely configurable as Jira, but that is an option for how you like your swim lanes for your agile management. So now it's starting to loop. So that's the end of that demo. We like this, and we use it also in-house. So we think that that if you guys are using a agile project management system, or you're thinking about it, It's there for you. You don't have to use it to use the other features of ServoyCloud, but it's part of it if you like it. And I didn't show this, but one thing that's nice is if you put the little commit the ticket number in your commit, it will automatically link it. And I didn't show that, but there's a commit section on the ticket, and then you can actually see the commits associated with that and the developer who committed it and the comments and all that. So that's quite nice. If there's no questions on that, I'll move to the next demo. Going back to monitoring, something we added, I don't know, I think it was actually before the last release, but then we enhanced it, is the daily production reports. So when you have a production environment for an application, it will take some of the monitoring statistics that I just showed you, and it will sort of aggregate them for a single day and put it into a report, which is clickable. You can drill down, but it will also email that report, sort of an image view of that report, which then you can click and deep link directly to the report. So you can daily get a usage report. I remember when we added this feature, we had a customer running in ServoyCloud who had a query that was getting slower and slower and slower until one day they noticed the performance issue. And I remember having a conversation like, hey, why didn't you just look at why didn't you notice this? Because it was getting slower over time because they were missing an index on a certain thing. Why did they not notice that their query performance was getting slower over time? Because it's right there in the metrics on the dashboard, but it's not like people log in every day and say, well, let me check my query. Well, some people do check my query statistics. But if you get an email that says, hey, you have these problems, and click here to go look at it, then it gives you a way to act on something and to deal with a performance issue before your users might even know it. So that's the whole premise of this feature. So let me show you where this resides. If we're looking at an application and we go to the reports here, you can see that there's a report generated per application production environment for every 24-hour period. And if I click on one of these, I get the report to load. So it shows you the average number of users connected over time for that 24-hour period. It shows you if you had any CPU spikes for any of your nodes. So this is a multi-node environment. So it can show you each one. It can show you database connections over time. And of course, any downtime errors, warnings in your log, locks that were in the database. And all of these are clickable, and you can drill down. It also shows you your top 10 slow queries and your top 10 slow application methods. So any of these are clickable. I could just pick the method, for example, and it will now deep link into the application, the environment performance statistics, and auto filter it for that time period, so you can kind of see it in detail. Don't know which one it actually was, but then you saw all this already, right? So you could drill into it. So now you can take a summary view and then act on it. It's not like you have to remember to log in and check things. You'll get a notification, a daily digest for that. If you look at the application configuration, you can select out of your users, which your ServoyCloud users, not your application users, like your developers and DevOps people, which recipients will get a daily production report. So you can get that landed into your email inbox. I think that's that feature. Any questions about daily production reports? We are not done. I'm about 60% through the demos, but we're doing okay on time.
No questions
My
yet. John.
My throat's getting dry and I forgot water. This is the one I'm excited to get to. ServoyCloud Hybrid. I call it hybrid here because people ask a lot when they see something, or they assume, but I have to host with Servoy and I don't want to, or I have customers that use our application and they'll never go to cloud. I put it on a server in a closet in their office or whatever, right? Warehouse. Hybrid cloud is a big topic everywhere, and we see it as kind of really compatible with Servoy, because Servoy has always been about productivity, about delivering great applications, but making it easier and having the flexibility to adapt it to your situation. And so we think that running cloud solutions should be no different. So when I say hybrid, I mean sort of all-encompassing, like you could manage security in the cloud, but you can still, have on-premise servers that consume that. And so the idea here is that all of the features that I just showed, we want to make that everywhere where you deploy. And my dream is that all customers of Servoy are using these features, and that we can really grow the capabilities of what we do in our cloud without requiring people to host with us. That's not our dream. Is not to be a hosting company. Our mission is still to make delivering great applications simple. And so we think that delivery and maintenance and monitoring of applications falls under that umbrella, and that's why we're doing this. And so we've been working on this feature for a while because we do Docker in our own cloud. We can enrich the Docker images I showed you in the build artifacts that you can just download and deploy wherever you like. We can enrich those with these features. So the performance data that's being sent is built into the Docker image. So if you build your application in ServoyCloud, you have that capability. And so now I want to show what it's like to run that. So again, I had help from a colleague to record part of this. So I switch over to another pre-recorded video GIF thing. So this is Docker Desktop. This would be a tool that you might use to start up a Docker image or start up a container using an image that you get from ServoyCloud. You can also do this via command line, and you can script it or automate it or build it into your own kind of deployment pipeline, however you like. But if you don't know much about Docker, the idea here is that you take everything you need from the stack and you bake it into one image. So rather than taking a WAR file and deploying it on an instance of Tomcat that you manage yourself, our Docker image contains Tomcat. It contains your WAR file, and it's parameterized so that you can pass in on the startup script all of the environment variables or other parameters that you need to take that image and put it on different containers and tweak it different, but still be running the same version of your application. So I think of software vendors who have on-premise deployments. This is really made for them in mind, although not just them. But you could take one version that the package from ServoyCloud, and you could deploy that across a fleet of on-premise servers, or mix that with maybe you also have your own cloud offering, but you know that it's the same software version. You just configure it a little bit differently, like maybe the database connections or the URLs for an internal API or something like that. You just pass those in the parameters. So what that looks like, I'll stop playing this infinite loop of starting a Docker container. What that looks like, if I come back to Cloud Control Center, looking again at our sample solution, you'll notice that it has two environments here, one pipeline. I'll start with the pipeline. So this job, a pipeline at Servoy is a build job. You can see that it builds and deploys. And I've been through demos of the pipeline, so I won't jump into the whole DevOps side of things. But you can see that the current package number 382 is what's currently deployed. And if I look at the environment, here it's multiple environments. So I have the environment details for my development environment and my remote environment. I could deep link to those. Alternately, I could come in here from the top level of this application and say, okay, I have this running on development, but I also have it running remote. We're rebranding this to satellite, but the remote also works, right? So this is not running in ServoyCloud. And if I look at this and I come in to say the users, the user count is still aggregated over time. So if I look at again, imagine this is like an on-premise environment at your customer. So I can see this over time. The feature I showed with the active user sessions is coming soon. We first got that live in the last release in our cloud, but we can move that into our Docker images. Again, with this remote environment, I get all of the log activity, query performance, and application performance. You'll notice that databases is not supported. This is not the same as query performance. This is actually looking at the health of the database itself. Obviously, we don't know anything about your database if you're self-hosting, so we can't do that. But if I look at these application performance, I saw there's 2 issues there. Again, I can drill in and look at those in detail for this remote environment. I'm going to refresh this. Something got hung up. So have I crashed my browser? It's not the ServoyCloud. Let me wait.
While you're waiting, Sean,
Yeah.
One question with these Docker builds, how easy is it to update the containers and?
Yeah. So a Docker image, you start you start a Docker image, you start up a container from a Docker image, like I was showing in that little video that was looping. And so all you have to do is run a script to do that, or use the Docker desktop thing like was showing in this video here. However, something that's on our roadmap is that we could make it that the Docker image is smart enough, the Docker container, or the image, I guess, is smart enough that when the container's running to say, oh, well, there's a new version available, and so I can automatically update that environment. And so our vision for that is that, if you come in here and I come to my application and I look at my environments, and I see maybe I have 20 sites deployed. I see all 20 of them here. I see what version they're on. I see if they're healthy. I see what the users are doing. I can interact with that. And of course, I could also, from my pipeline, say that this new version is built. I want to make it available for my, or push it out, kind of push it to, they'll actually pull it down, but make it available for my remote or my satellite environments to then download and update, and maybe that's on a schedule. So we haven't built that feature yet, but this is very much where we want to take this as we get people on board and using this. We can add features like that.
Cool. One question that came up is kind of what's part of the Docker image. You mentioned there's Tomcat. I know it's running on a Linux OS. Is there anything else? Java probably, right?
Yeah, I'm not super smart about the cloud stuff, but I think it's the Java, the Tomcat, and the and of course the WAR file and then the parameters that you expose. And keep in mind that things like updating Tomcat. I think one of these releases we may move to another Tomcat. That's just baked into the image. You don't have to say, oh, okay, well, Servoy is now compatible with a newer version of Tomcat for this version of Servoy, and it just works. If I don't really want to get too much into the pipeline because we've done a lot, I actually have quite a bit more to cover here, but the pipeline itself, you can see that this is configured. You can see it's the 24.12 build, right? So you can have multiple jobs generating multiple releases of Servoy, and those will automatically get the right version of Tomcat, for example, or the right version of Java, right? So it's really meant to make I mean, that's Docker. That's you know, we build the images for you, but Docker's meant to make, you know, managing a stack much simpler, because you just manage a parameterized, you know, a complete container, not individual software components.
Okay. I had one question come up from Paul Bromwell. He asked if there's any control over the Docker file content available. For example, if we have a Linux app package to support our app. Not totally sure what he means by Linux app package though. But I think we have some control, like through parameterization, but I don't think we have a full control over the file, the Docker file, right?
No. I mean, that you get our Docker images out of our cloud. Of course, we entertain feature requests. So if there's something that you're doing special that you need exposed or a hook for, then we can entertain feature requests. But you get a standard Servoy Docker image, and it can be parameterized, you know, for your application.
Yep. One other interesting question that came up. Is there a plan to have a development environment in the Docker container as well? That could be interesting, but I don't think we have any plans for that at the moment, right?
No, I don't believe we have any plans to Dockerize ServoyDeveloper.
Another question from Victor.
If you want to, I would just, for that,
Go ahead.
it's kind of off our topic here, but if you want to make a feature request to support, you know, we can look at what exactly you're looking for there.
Yep, that's a good idea. One question from Victor about the satellite feature. Is that going to have a similar pricing model compared to the ServoyCloud model, or is that something different? Maybe
Yeah, so it's the ServoyCloud. I'm happy to take, if you guys are interested to go explore this further, you can email me directly, or respond to any of the emails you got for this webinar. The pricing for ServoyCloud is, there's like tiers, and the basic tier, which it really depends on your partner agreement with Servoy for the ISV or the end user agreements. The basic tier can be bundled, included with that, and then you get one satellite environment, and then we sell it in packs. So if you go to the standard or the enterprise tier of ServoyCloud, then you get, like, I have to double check. I think it's 50 or then 100 remote environments packed with that. They're meant to be fairly inexpensive. I mean, it's not, because it's not hosted on our infrastructure, right? So it's meant to be fairly inexpensive, and that you can just you know, get the functionality for all of the analytics and the other things. But I don't have that in front of me. I think it goes basic, standard, and enterprise.
So you can reach out to you for more details.
Yeah, and we'll send a follow-up mail from this webinar too, with some information, because the satellites is brand new. So, but we do have a pricing structure for it ready to go. Okay, we're getting a little short on time. I want to keep it to an hour, so I'm gonna go into the Servoy core ServoyDeveloper demos, and try to do those quickly. So I'll just jump in. There's kind of a lot of different small stuff, so I do like kind of mini demos here. One is in Servoy core ServoyDeveloper, we have OAuth providers available now that can completely bypass login. So I showed you the whole stateless custom login screen where you can add the buttons to click, like I want to authenticate Google or Microsoft, what have you. This comes from a feature request that we've gotten from at least one or two customers, where they delegate all of their authentication to one single provider. They don't need a login screen. They don't want to have, you know, this click the button. It's just when they open the app, it goes to the authentication, they authenticate, it comes back, right? And that you can do without any connection to ServoyCloud. And so I'll show what that looks like, just how to configure it. So to do that, I must share ServoyDeveloper. Why does it not come up? There it is. Duan, do you see ServoyDeveloper in the share?
Yes, it just showed up.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you just click the active solution, you see the authenticator type over here set to none. Of course, if you're using that stateless login screen, you set it to ServoyCloud. You can set it to OAuth. And when you do that, there's a little wizard here, and you just select the API that you're using. You enter your client ID and secret. Basically, these are all standard OAuth parameters. And when you do that, the next time you launch the application, it will immediately go out to Google or Microsoft or what you specified. And then it will call back into your application after they've authenticated, and it will pass in the on solution open event, the token, the OAuth token that was passed back, and that has the user name and that sort of thing. So you can completely outsource your authenticator to a third party if you want to have it like a simple corporate OAuth. So that's not even a demo, but just a quick info. That feature's available. It's in the documentation under the different authenticators. I go to the next demo. Okay, so back to the slide deck. We did add a first-class menu object to do menuing. The reason this was requested is that if you think about the side nav component or the nav bar component, they're very flexible, and you can set up the menuing directly in the component properties. You can also do it programmatically, but at the same time, there's not like a very out-of-the-box simple way to say, here are my menus, and just apply those to a component. Moreover, I forgot to make a point about security, but to set security on, say, a navigation menu, you just want to do it click, click, click configuration and not do a bunch of code or on solution open or on form show, whatever. So I'll show you I had planned a few demos for that, but we're short on time. So I'm just going to show you where the feature is. So again, I switch back to ServoyDeveloper. If you're in a solution and you now will see in the solution model underneath value list, there's a new node there called menus. You can right click it and create a menu. You get an object like this. You can right click it and create a menu item. And then you can specify the properties of a menu item. I've specified a few here. And essentially those are over here in the properties panel. Again, this is sort of like a data model object that the components can consume. But since components can be different, you can also put component-specific properties in them. But essentially, you could have multiple instances of a component consuming a single menu, and if you change that menu, it will update in different places. So you get that sort of model and view separation that some people strive for. In this case, I just made a simple menu structure for navigation. I didn't apply any security, but I want to point this out because this is one of the nice features of this. If you double click a menu item security, you can take the permissions you have configured in your application security and apply that either it's hidden or disabled for that particular permission. So I'm not going to demo that, but I just want to show where that's at. Then if you come to a component, so I'll come over to my form for my example menu form, and here I have the side nav component. It used to be if you do this at configuration, you click through here and you add all these menu items, but now you can just set it to consume a Servoy menu object here. So I just pick this out of a chooser. It's sort of like assigning a value list to I look at this a lot like how we did value lists, where you really separate the model of the value list from the component that consumes it. And it's sort of like that. If you have set side nav specific properties, it will show up here, for example, the badge number on the orders, for example. I also did let me minimize some things here, make some room. I did the nav bar. The nav bar is inside the other form. which is entirely the point. So if I look at my products form, here it has the navbar component. And if I look at the properties for that, again, I'm just assigning that Servoy menu object like I would a value list, and then it renders the menu that it sees. And there are some navbar specific things like input groups, right? For the search box here is a navbar specific thing. So if I have 100 instances of this reusable navbar, say it's a generic toolbar in my application, I don't need to go through and write a script or set up each form individually. It's meant for kind of that separation. Then if I, one other area where I can do this is on a pop-up. So I have on the right-click event here of this grid, the method, you see it here, create pop-up menu. Pop-up menus, before you would sort of build it programmatically, but now I can just say create pop-up menu, and I get that this one called product options, and I'll show that in a minute. And then I show the pop-up, so I don't have to programmatically build that menu. It's over here under. So here's the toolbar menu with that user menu, the search box, and the new record. And then here's the product options, and I just have three things that you can do to a product. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the browser. Let's switch to the sharing again. Okay, so first of all, I have, my products form and my customers form. Those were all just set up at the menu level. And then I'm reusing that toolbar on both of these. So I have, over here, the sub menu with an icon, or the input group over here. That's all configured at the menu level, not on the component per se. And then I have the third menu, which is the pop-up. So if I come in here and I right click and say I want to discontinue this product, then I run that code and it runs. So again, that's just sort of, it's not really new functionality. It's just a different way to do something that's a little bit more separated from the model and the view. For now, we support the other way to do it. So it's not like it'll break your application. But we may make some changes in the future to kind of push it into more this approach. And so then we won't ever make it break, I don't think, but you may want to consider going this route for any new menus that you make. There's one other thing that I didn't demo, which is like tree view components. Those are kind of cumbersome to use because they go to a data source. And so then you have to have like a in-memory data source or a database table with a hierarchy and all that. Now you can just make a hierarchical menu in Developer, and then it will generate a data source that you can then bind a tree view component to. So again, no code and no database to do a simple tree view. If I switch back to Developer, it's also worth pointing out that these, of course, have an API. So you can see down here, you can programmatically build these menus also. So same as you would the old way to do it. Okay.
Sean. Yep.
Any questions on menus?
Yeah, there's a few questions. I know we're a little bit over time, so I want to just get them out of the way here. Terry asked, what's the limit on the number of items in these pop-up menus? Can we just do it infinitely, or what is there a maximum?
Well, I think it's a good question. I didn't think of that before this. I'm sure there's a limit because it's a static menu, design time menu, right? So like a value list, I think the limit is like 500 or something. If you, so I don't know, there's probably a limit, but, if you're getting into a really large menu, then maybe it should be a different display anyway,
Yeah,
like
different approach, sure.
a grid or a list or a tree view or something.
Yep. Robert asked if we can link the docs to the YouTube recording later on. That's something that's can be done, right?
Link the doc. Yeah, that's a good
documentation.
idea. Yeah, because there's the release note stub for every release. We could put the product update webinar video link on the Gitbook doc site.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a guide for this. If you go to the documentation site, there is a guide for the new menu feature, and all of the ServoyCloud features that I showed you are available on our docs.servoy.com.
Okay, that's all the questions we have. Yeah.
All right. There's just a couple other things to cover. Wait, I'm gonna switch to back to the browser. Yeah. Okay. Back to the slides. Yeah, so that's the menu object. Have a go at it. There is a new data event, and I did make a demo for this. So, hey, if you got to go, we're over 1 hour. Feel free to leave. This will be recorded, but if you want to stick around, I'll show this as well. Essentially, a lot of our events have a before and an after, and certain events on the before you can actually block the action. So I'm thinking of like on hide, right, or on data change. You can actually return false out of the event handler and block the event. Over the years, we've had use cases where people don't want to allow a record selection change, and then they want to validate something and then block it. So we did add a new event to the core API, the data API, for before record selection that you can block. If I jump over to my demo solution again, I can show what that looks like. Suppose I come in here and I edit the unit price for my chai product, and then I come down here and I click to another record. I haven't saved the changes for that, or maybe I don't know. I don't want to change record selection for that. I just made that rule up kind of arbitrary, but unless I save it. So you can see that it wouldn't let me click into another. It goes back. It doesn't fire that event, and it doesn't process other events. Like if I try to delete something, it didn't actually process that. It stays stuck on there. And so I've handled that, and I'll show you what that looks like in code. So I go back to ServoyDeveloper. And this is done at the data level, so it's not like a UI thing. So if I actually go to my products form, which is based on my products table, you can see in the events, so normally you'll come in here, you'll be the columns, you click events. Here's all the events we've had for years. We added this one, on found set before selection change. And so you can double click that and implement a handler on the entity or in a top level scope. Basically, it passes in the old record and the new record. So the record that is selected and the record that you're trying to select. And I just quickly said, hey, if the old record or the selected record has changed data, then I want to block it. So I reversed it with a not operator. So that essentially is returning false when that record's has data dirty. So that's a simple example, but you could probably have some complicated use case where you want to block selection. So that's possible to do. That's a new API, and I didn't do anything to UI. I just put it right here on the entity itself. Going back to the browser, the next mini demo I have, I think it's the last one. My throat is about dry. There is a pretty big behavior change. We actually implemented it in the last release, but then we left the default set to the old way. In this release, we switched the default to the new way. You can still have the old way. There's if you look at the release notes, there's a property that you can set in your properties file if you don't want it to work this way, because it can have, you can set it to not work this way while you go through your app and maybe do some refactor, because it could have a potential effect in your application. So what happens here is that for years and years and years in Servoy, a delete is always immediate. So you can have autosave to be false. So that means that, inserts and updates we sort of collect those. And then when you finally do save data, we send it to the database. So you always have the option to roll it back, but deletes have always been immediate. Some people didn't like this. It was kind of really difficult to implement it a right way. So we just left it as immediate. It was well documented. And I think over the years, everyone, learned to live with it. So now you have probably solutions where a user can edit, you know, and then save their changes or cancel their changes, but you have some warning like when they delete, like, hey, it's going to go immediately, and you can't undo it, right? That has changed. If autosave is false, your deletes can now be reverted if you do a revert edited records call. And that becomes the default now in the 2024.12 release. So if you move to that version, you probably want to check how you're doing deletes. I recommend doing a workspace search on delete record or on delete foundset.delete record, and find the instances of those and see if you're depending on, you know, that still being immediate, because now it can be deferred. I have a small demo to show what that looks like. So if I come in here, I'm going to cancel that change. So now you can see it went back to 18, and now I can select again from the last demo. But if I come in here and say, okay, I want to delete this record. So this might be what your application does currently. You'll say, hey, you're about to delete this product. There's no undo, right? So, okay, yes, I delete it. You can see the anise syrup is gone. But if I'm doing some other thing and I cancel, it comes back, right? So that might be what happens in your application that's a little bit unexpected. Now, if you're just starting new, or you know, this is great because you don't say the delete, there's no undo. You can delete it and then you can cancel it, right? If you have autosave off. But it may be that you get a little bit of a weird behavior where someone thought they deleted a record and it came back. If this whole thing makes you uncomfortable and you say, I don't like that, I do deletes everywhere and it's been this way for years, just put that property in your properties file, and you'll be fine. It'll just always work the way it has in the past. But this sort of makes the whole transaction nicer. We do everything now that you can roll it back. So that's kind of a potentially breaking change. I think that's all my demos. Quick thing, roadmap and announcements. 2024 LTS was the last major release having the legacy client types. So if you're using SmartWeb or NG1, I mean, this is nothing new, but the 2025 LTS, which will come out later this year, will not have those clients. So this 2024 LTS is you know, going to last until sometime mid-2026. So the clock is ticking on those. So just a reminder about that. We are seeing a lot of customers that are upgrading lately, and our experts and our consultants have been helping them. We have some good experience with that. We even have some automation scripts that can help. So if you feel like you're falling behind, if you feel like this is too much to do, but you also don't like this looming end of support in 2026, give us a call. We have what we call the Upsurance program, where we can help you kind of analyze what you're looking at. Even if you're coming from Servoy 6 Smart Client, you know, we can help. So reach out to me or to sales@servoy.com if you're interested in having us have a look at your application. Another well, potentially breaking changes. I mentioned the deletes. There's one other one, that the file plugin has been cleaned up for the legacy client type. So the file plugin worked differently in some cases for the smart client. So we started removing methods and refactoring things. So one example is show file save dialog. Doesn't really make sense in a browser environment because that lets you browse the file system, which you could never do in a browser. So that's one example that's deprecated and gone. So you may see that as a warning if you still reference it in the latest version. Another announcement, we are going to move the Servoy forum pretty soon here. So over the past year, we've been trying to modernize our documentation, our support system. We moved to Jira Cloud for support. We moved to Gitbook for our documentation site. The forum has had a good run on the old PHP BB, but that is becoming very old and difficult to maintain and keep it secure and everything. So we're going to move to a provider. We've chosen discourse.org. They host the forums for lots of popular consumer products, and they have some nice modern features. So we'll be doing that in the next weeks here, I think. So pretty soon, and it will be more modern and secure. We will migrate all the old posts. So lots of Google searches can land on a forum post if you're looking for something. So we'll put in the URL remapping so that links to old posts should still resolve into the new forum. So we understand that there can be some valuable information there. But overall, it should be a better experience for everyone. We'll be sending out more information about that as we get closer. The users should be automatically moved. You'll just have to be kind of re-invited and reset your password and all of that. So hopefully minimal disruption and maximum benefit from doing that. So stay tuned. And then just looking ahead at 2025, we're really focused on what more we can do with ServoyCloud and monitoring and controlling applications wherever you deploy them. Of course, we do have hosting options if you're interested, but we're trying to bring feature parity with our satellite option as well, so that you can do the things like look at users real time and all of that. Something I didn't show that I actually could have demoed because we already have it partially working is application analytics. So up until this point, we've been focusing on sort of environment analytics. So how is how are the databases, the queries, the code, the RAM and CPU, how is that all performing? But you may want to start to look at how your application is being used by your users. So we're already sending that out of our satellite images to ServoyCloud. So you can see which forms are used the most, which buttons are clicked the most. We can even separate that on user or tenant. So you could say, why does this tenant not use this feature, but this tenant does? So we're exploring that. We have already the infrastructure laid for that, and we're looking for essentially feature requests on that. What sorts of things do people want to know about how their application is used? And we're going to be focusing more and more on making onboarding into ServoyCloud easier. We will have an API which can be used. So for example, if you use the SVY security open source module for your user management and multi-tenancy, we could potentially automate that. So you could import your whole security schema into ServoyCloud in one go, and then switch over and then have the benefit of user management and multi-tenancy and the stateless login screen and all of that available to you easier. So we're looking to make it easier to onboard. So that's going to be a major focus area. Just like last year, we're still exploring integrations for AI. We're reaching out to customers. If you're interested in doing an AI project together, we're very eager to explore this. We have a team that has some experience. We've noticed that the GitHub Copilot extension for Eclipse and therefore ServoyDeveloper has a lot of improvements and is getting better and better. I know that our folks here are using it and enjoying it. So it could be that gets so good we could start to do integrations in ServoyDeveloper with it and auto-generate things. I don't know. So we're very much keeping an eye on this. So if you have ideas for projects or features, please let us know, because this is on our radar. That's it. I think we took a lot of questions. We took you about 20 minutes over time. So unless there are any last burning questions, I'd like to thank you all for sticking with me for this big webinar with lots of demos. Of course, we will publish the recording. I've got your comment, Robert, about the video linked in the docs. That's a good idea. So thanks for that. And so this is me signing off. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Tuan and Ron, for joining. And I'd also like to thank the ServoyCloud team for giving me some last minute demos and information that I had to tie this together. They were really helpful. Goodbye, everyone, and I'll see you next time.